Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners. I am joined by the talented Emily Deal, our creative head lead storytelling. We should really nail down your title. I feel like that's going to be a vital thing for us to do in the future. Sure, you're our head creative. Yes. Emily, what are we talking about today?
So we have a question that was submitted.
Okay. Love a question.
Yeah. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
How do we begin to set boundaries that help us as leaders to take time for ourselves and begin to manage our time effectively without coming across as rude or unavailable?
Okay, that's a lot.
It's a lot. You got
That's
to break
a
that
lot.
down a little bit.
First is setting boundaries.
Setting some healthy boundaries.
I think part of it is realizing why we need to set boundaries in the first place.
Yeah.
Because boundaries are ultimately about creating margin. Creating margin in our time, margin in our energy. And I love what they said about reinvesting in ourselves, right? And that's a hard thing to do sometimes because we have demands on us constantly.
Right.
And I think part of the reason we don't set boundaries is the last piece where it's like, how do we do it without being rude? And I think we worry about that a lot. Like, if I tell this person no, are they going to be mad at me? Like, that's a real wrestle, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Especially, we just talked about Enneagram 2s.
Last episode, we talked Enneagram. Here we are.
I am an Enneagram
the
2.
Enneagram floodgates are now open.
Yes.
And we're not going to
I can talk about it all the time.
Okay. Welcome to Leadership Shorts, our new Enneagram podcast.
No, it's they ask anyone in my family. They're already very tired of me talking about it.
I
know.
Yeah.
But I think that's the real thing. I mean, at all times, I'm like, I don't want this person to hate me.
Yeah.
I think that's an entire other podcast episode. But like that healthy boundary there, so that we can create that margin and be able to invest in ourselves, so that we can then invest in others. And
because that's really the key. Like and this is a terrible analogy, but when a plane's going down, you put your mask on first, right? That is the number one rule. You put your mask on before anyone else, because if you pass out, everyone else is around you. No one can help them, right?
Well, we talked like that burnout spreads out, so the minute you're burnt out and then you burn out, it just keeps going. That contagion of burnout.
Yeah, burnout really is contagious, right?
Yeah.
It starts to spread in a really viral way. And so we have to understand that we have this responsibility as leaders to show up healthy. But doing that requires boundaries. It requires that margin to invest in ourselves. And so I don't know that it's enough to set boundaries. I think we have to set boundaries, and then we have to point to that boundary 1,000 different times.
Over-communicate.
Right? Over-communicate. Don't stop, because I think we're bad about, I'm going to set a boundary. We tell somebody, and we expect them to constantly remember it, constantly honor it.
Yeah.
Whereas
I told you this that one time.
Yeah,
you should know.
We're mad when they violate the boundary, right? And then instead of telling them, hey, don't forget about the boundary, we don't say anything. We just sit there and we stew in our madness and anger.
Like, okay, now I can keep this, and I know that this is going to happen, and this has happened last time. And so then when it finally boils over, you're like ready with your list.
And in part of our mind, we're like, well, I set a boundary once. It didn't work. So clearly this is a dumb idea. I don't have to worry about this anymore. But boundaries are so vital, whether it is at work, setting healthy boundaries to say, within these boundaries we can thrive. And outside of these, we can't. And setting boundaries with our own health. Within these boundaries, I can thrive. Outside of this, I can't. And really setting it with our families. And this is one of the things we work on with people is how to rest. How do you actually successfully rest? And one of the biggest keys is if you set aside time for rest, which is a very hard thing to do, that's a boundary, right? You are setting a boundary on your calendar and saying, during this time, I'm going to rest.
Yeah.
But the next key is you got to communicate it to everyone that is involved in your life.
Yeah, this is my day. This is my time. This is when this is happening.
Which is really hard for people to do, right? Like you've got young kids, and so if you got young kids, like no, this is mama's time. Like, but there is even in that there is health in, hey, husband, this is mama's time. Like I need this time to recover, and so I'm going to need you to watch the littles, and then I'm going to give you time to recover later.
Yeah, and then also being aware of what I'm doing with that time and turning off all my notifications and all that.
Yes,
actually being aware of it.
Right? I think
keeping my own boundaries.
Yes. Well, it's setting boundaries in anything that might interrupt this time to invest in you. What are those boundaries? But I think the other thing is understanding these boundaries are not these giant brick walls. Like it's never going to go perfectly. And that can't be the goal. If the goal is perfection, we're already setting ourselves up for failure. So we're going to set a boundary. We're going to do it badly. I'm going to violate it myself. Someone else is going to violate it. Then it is circling back and communicating and saying, hey, don't forget, here's the boundary. We really have this for a reason. Here's why this boundary matters. Here's the margin I need to be a better leader, whether it's family or work, whatever. This is why this matters. And we didn't handle it well. So now how can we handle it better going forward?
Yeah.
I don't think you can ever over-communicate about boundaries.
I agree.
All right. So if you are struggling with setting boundaries, if that's a hard thing for you, really define why they matter. Set good, healthy boundaries where you can thrive within them, and then communicate, over-communicate. All right. I love that. If anyone else has a question for us, where do they send it to?
They can send it to lab@forwardpartners.net.
lab@forwardpartners.net. We love answering your questions. Please send them to us.
Yeah.
We would love to include you in this little journey that we're on here. If people want to follow us online, where do they find us?
@ForwardPartner.
We're @ForwardPartner. All the major socials. You will find us there. You will find free content designed to help you be a better leader. Thank you, Emily, for doing this. Thank you, Danny, for producing. Thank you, Wilco Workspaces, for partnering with us on this. We are so excited to have you join us on the next Leader Lab with Leadership Shorts. Keep moving forward.